Thank you, guys.
Right,
Welcome.
Jason.
Okay. Jason, welcome.
So what's your point?
I've got so many points. I think.
Yeah.
Okay, which gospel do you want to contend with?
And well, we're on the Gospel of John, so I've got some notes and things. But
Okay.
I want a couple of so many things. But the first thing is, and it's to do with the Gospel of John. In Surah 10, 37, 38, Surah 2,
In what?
verse 23. It's to do with John. It's to do with John. It's to do with the Gospel of John, I promise. Surah
So
17, verse
just so I understand, Jason, you're quoting from the Quran to support the idea that the Gospel of John is a historical, reliable book, yes?
No, it's relevant. It's really relevant, guys. Honestly,
No,
I
but
promise you.
are you using the Quran in defense of the Gospel of John?
Brother, you've got to
historical-
let me. If you let me finish my point, and then we can have a fruitful dialogue on this point, and then you can dismiss it if you don't agree with it.
I'll be
or
honest
not.
with you, it wouldn't be fair on the other Christians because we cut them off as soon as you start mentioning the Quran, because the Quran doesn't support you. It doesn't support the historical reliability of the New Testament.
Well, even if I grant you that. So, but just
So
listen
would
to
it
what
be
I've
fair
got
to allow
say.
you to do it though?
No, but I grant you that. I'm accepting that. So just let me quote it, and let me tell you why I'm quoting it, and then I'll go to the Gospel of John.
No, but I just said it wouldn't be fair for you to do it when we cut other Christians off
Let's,
doing it.
let's do the rule of make your point first,
Yes.
then use the things for evidence. So say what your point is. For example, Hamza's name's Darren. And then Trini could say no, it's not. It's actually Hamza. Look at his name; it says Hamza. So what's your point? Say the point first, then bring the evidence.
Be patient, gentlemen. Be patient. Scholarship means you have to be patient. It says in Surah 43, verse 3 and 4, all these verses, it talks about that the Quran is the mother of books, and the way to discern whether the Quran is that bring a surah like it.
Why are we talking about the
That's
Quran?
what-
This is Jason. I'll tell you what I'll do. If your point is on the topic, so for example, if you're going to say we should believe the Gospel of John is a reliable source of information because the Quran says so, and then you bring verses from the Quran to support that, then you can quote from the Quran. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure. Do you believe the Quran is a reliable source of information?
Not really, no.
Right, not really, no. So you're defending the New Testament, bringing the book that you don't believe is reliable. Now you're supposed to be telling us why you as a Christian, you're supposed to be telling us why you as a Christian believe the Gospels are a reliable source of information. You've just admitted the Quran doesn't support that. So please leave the Quran off the table. It's got nothing to do with it.
But in a dialogue, if you're not, I promise you, we're going to be on history. There's no problem about that. We're going to be on
so leave
history.
the Quran. The Quran. Listen to me. If you said the Quran is a reliable source of information, Jason, if you said I believe the Quran's reliable, therefore I can bring it as defense of the New Testament, you have a point. But you've just admitted you don't believe the Quran's reliable. So bringing it to the table doesn't help your defense. Don't you understand that point?
You're not letting me finish my point. You're not letting me finish my
irrelevant.
point. I've not even made my point. But how do you know? Because I've not made my point yet. Let me make my point.
Because you quoted from the Quran, which you don't believe is reliable. So how is that going to support you believing the New Testament's reliable?
The historicity of the Gospel of John.
You can't just come in and talk about what you like. The topic is this: the historicity of the Gospel of John. Now, we've put some points forward why we don't believe the Gospel of John is historically reliable. You're coming on here now to tell us why the the Gospel of John, is a reliable source of information. The Quran doesn't help you, so I don't know why you keep going to it.
Okay, I accept
so just
what
stay
you're
on
saying.
your stay
now,
on
can
your
I just
book.
say what I'm going to say?
No, don't
okay,
talk about
let me
the Quran,
let me finish the point. I'm not going to quote the Quran. I'm not going to quote the Quran, but I'm going to say what I have to say now. The point is that for the Quran to be the word of God, it's not by history, and yet you're using you're trying
That's
to
got
use
nothing to do with what we're talking about. Listen, Jason, we're doing a stream on the Quran after we finish the New Testament, and you're welcome to come and question the Quran at that point. Go on, Ijaz.
So there's a double standard there, Hamza. Your Quran says we know it's
no, it's not a double standard.
It's not better than any Bible, any other verse.
Jason,
Yeah,
the stream
it's
is
not
not why we
historic.
should believe
Jason, is
it's
this what it's come to? Really?
Well,
This is what it's come to. You've got to bring that up.
Just
and
mute
not
him a
address the
second.
point.
Just mute him a second. Let Ijaz
This-
talk.
Guys,
I'm sure he's got self-restraint. I don't need to
no,
mute him.
we don't need to mute him. I think he'll listen, right? So, guys, what is the topic of today's stream? Can you put up the banner, Ben, on the bottom of the screen for me?
It's already up. It's been up all day.
That's in the history of the
I
Gospel of
missed
John.
it. If I missed it, Jason must have missed it too. I'm just going to wait for it to come back around so I can read from it. Right. So, testing the historicity of the Gospel of John. So, Jason, you just asked us the question, why do you apply historical standards to the Gospels? Because the Quran does not tell you to apply historical standards to the Gospels. One, that's fake news. Two, we are trying to respond to the Christian claim that the Gospels can be relied upon historically. So we are this stream is a response to a Christian challenge that you can trust what the Gospels say because they are based in history and they can be confirmed historically. That is the point, Jason. So please leave the Quran out of this. You're more than welcome. In fact, you've qualified for the Quran streams because you've appeared.
100%.
So please, Jason, try to stick on topic because as Hamza said, if we give you that exception to bring the Quran into the argument, then technically we have been unfair to every other Christian. And because God calls us to be just people, we cannot then say, Jason, you got an exception. So Jason, I cannot grant you that exception, but please stay on the topic. That is all. The historicity of the Gospel of John. That is the purpose of the stream. You should have known this because for many weeks, you intended to come so you knew what the topic was already, right? So please speak on the topic. Let us know what we said was wrong. Bring up some arguments, engage with some evidence. We are more than willing to do so.
We're going to go on the Gospel of John. In terms of the history of scholarship on the Gospel of John, everybody who comes to the scholarship of the Gospel of John has presuppositions. And those presuppositions, when you're looking at history, you have to look at presuppositions and historical facts. What you, as the Dawah team, are not willing to do, you're putting words in my mouth. You're not allowing me to engage as a historian on historical Jesus studies. And one of the most important things in historical Jesus studies is that you must test the presuppositions. And if the presuppositions are not consistent, the historian has to acknowledge that. And you guys are not acknowledging your inconsistency, and you're not even willing to let me to talk about presuppositions in historical inquiry, which shows you guys don't really know what you're doing, and you're bracketing dialogue and discussion, which would be informative to the public and informative to you, and you're not being honest about that, guys. So
Jason,
I know the history of the Gospel of John scholarship, and we can talk about the presuppositions.
All right, Jason, do you believe the Gospel of John is a reliable source of information historically?
So in the history of let me just explain to you. Let me explain to you. In the history of the Gospel of John, what is the main method of scholarship that has been used on the Gospel of John?
Jason, do you believe the Gospel of John is a reliable historical source of information? Do you believe that or not?
If you answer me. Tell me, who are the main scholars in the history of the Gospel of John? Tell me.
I'll say it again to you. Tell us your position first. Do you believe the Gospel of John is a reliable source of information historically?
Tell me how Bultmann's scholarship impacted the historical inquiry of the Gospel of John.
Jason, you can demonstrate why you believe it's reliable, but do you believe it's reliable?
One sec. So, guys, I think we need to have time segments or something like a minute. That would be better because we're going to cross talk. So yeah, Rudolf Bultmann came with the argument that it's a response to the Gnostics. That was his initial claim. He claimed that the Johannine prologue was written in response to the Gnostics. However, historical research shows in some capacity that the Gnostics came after, not during. Therefore, some scholars predate and misstate the Gospel of John when it was originally written, and some of them believe that the prologue was from a different author altogether. That's in the Hermeneia series, John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18. Does that answer your question, Jason? I'm going to also respond to your next question. What is the main?
You've missed an important. You've missed You've missed.
Question. One sec. That's one sec. One sec. Let me answer the question. That's on page 91 of Dr. Craig Blomberg's book, The Historicity of the Gospel of John. So I've given a reference, answered your question, named the scholars, named the methodology, named the source. Now, for God's sake, Jason, please bring your arguments for the reliability and historicity of the Gospel of John.
I am, because I'm coming to you now. You quoted on your website, brother. You've actually quoted Bultmann, and I think you actually quoted from the Gospel of John. And the quotation that you gave is scholarship that's out of date. So you're using scholarship that's out of date when you're using Bultmann, and you have used them in your website. What I'm trying to tell you, you've missed something very important in historical studies of the Gospel of John concerning Rudolf Bultmann, and that is his methodology and the theory.
Tell us.
Wait a minute. And his theory behind his methodology.
Oh,
now, I'm sorry, Hamza, but I know that you're not into scholarship, so don't worry about it.
Jason, I'm not into waffle. I'm not into waffle.
Let me finish.
I'm not into waffle, mate.
Let me finish.
I asked you a simple... Jason, I'm going to give you one last chance. Jason, I'm going to give you one last chance, right? Do you believe the Gospel of John is a reliable source of information historically? Not what Bultmann believes, you, Jason Burns.
Listen, I believe it's historically true. Of course I do. But the point is...
Why?
Wait a minute. Listen. Before you get into historical inquiry, you must test your presuppositions.
I'm asking your historical inquiry.
I'm asking you. Have presuppositions in... Listen.
Jason, this is not me attacking the Gospel of John. This is me questioning the claims of the Christians. Now, you've just said you believe it's historically reliable. That's what you've said, Jason. Now, please tell the people why you believe it's historically reliable. That's it.
I'll tell you why. Because number one, my presuppositions are correct. Your presuppositions are not correct. You're not consistent with your Quran. Number two, my presuppositions help me to do historical inquiry where yours don't. I have a good basic historical methodology, which you don't. You have to borrow from our methodologies. Number three, there are many, many historical facts within the Gospel of John. So those are 3 points.
So I'll respond to that. Everyone has presuppositions. Therefore, to argue that because you have presuppositions, one of you must be wrong is incorrect. We grant that you believe that it is the word of God. We do not grant that it is the word of God. However, if you paid attention, we are using methodological neutrality. So basically, the argument is for methodological neutrality. Whatever the Christian brings forward, you implicitly believe in methodological credulity. You believe what the Gospels say. We, on the other hand, we're not applying methodological skepticism. You said that at the first point, which is wrong. You need to learn the method that we're using. So because we apply methodological neutrality, all we are doing is that you bring claims which are positive for the gospel case, and then we look at those claims and we analyze them together. We're not dismissing them just for the sake of dismissing them. That would be methodological skepticism. So just correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Nazam. We let the Christians bring their points. We let them explain it. We look at the verses together, and we grant, yes, this verse was in the Johannine corpus. Yes, this verse was mentioned in Luke. Yes, we agree that there's synoptic gospels, and then there's the Gospel of John. So we grant the foundational ideas by which you need to engage in a fruitful discussion. So if your claim, Jason, is that everyone has presuppositions, yes, we do. Now, secondly, you made a very strange statement. You said we Muslims need to depend on your scholarship to use the historical method. The historical method is secular. It does not read into it. So I'll give you an example. The criterion of dissimilarity and the criterion of continuity. Both of them have nothing to do with Jesus being God or the person espousing the criteria to be a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. It's just a criteria. So if something's strange, does it stick out? Does it go against the grain? Then it's more likely to be true than less likely to be true. Does something fit into the world? Then we can generally understand that this is something that could have happened. So I've just given you several criteria, and none of them you have to read your presuppositions into them. So one more time, Jason. It's been 2 months. The question is, if you believe that the Gospel of John is historically reliable, we've made many points in the first stream and now the second stream. I assume that you did your homework. You said that you're a scholar. A scholar does his homework, you watch the first and the second. So based on the first and second stream, either tell us what we got wrong, or if you want to introduce a positive argument for the historicity, introduce it now, then tell us why, and we can engage with it. Do you understand the words that I've just spoken, Jason?
Okay, but listen, I'm just going to show you something here. Here I have a paper of 59 confirmed historical facts. I have papers here, all on historical data concerning John. I have some of the best commentaries on the Gospel of John.
But give us a fact to work with. It doesn't.
Yeah. So we can. So there's no problem.
Have we said anything you've disagreed with, Jason? Have we said
Can
anything?
Can I speak? You've spoken. What are you afraid of? Let me speak, please.
No, have we said anything you've disagreed with?
Yes. Let me come
All right,
to you.
give us an
I've got all the
example of something we
historical
said that you've disagreed with.
Hamza, may I speak, please?
Yeah, give us
Please.
an example of something that we've said that you've
He's
disagreed
just
with.
made statements and claims, and I want to engage with the scholarship that he's just said. He made a point here. He said his key word was method of neutrality. That's what he said.
Yes.
Did you say that? Let me tell you something. There's no such. There is no such neutrality or methodological neutrality. There's no such. Wait a minute. Let me just finish. Let me make me claim. Yeah.
I'm not interrupting.
Let me make me claim. Renan was a romanticism, and he wrote Life of Christ as a romantic. Bultmann was an existential philosopher, and he wrote a life of Jesus in his Gospel of John from his existential philosophy. You are a Muslim, and you are writing and talking about the Gospel of John from your Islamic perspective, i.e. Surah 4, which denies the crucifixion. That is influencing your scholarship. I'm a Christian, and the Bible and Jesus Christ is influencing my scholarship. An atheist, most of them are scientific materialists, and they deny miracles. So when they're looking at the Gospel of John in history, they can't accept miracles by definition. So your methodology influences your scholarship. So there is no neutrality, Ijaz.
Right, so Jason, let me engage with what you just said. So I'm just getting some feedback there. Sorry about that. So Jason, who is the person that argued for methodical neutrality? Do you know who I'm referencing? Because you've said that
the key word methodical neutrality. No, but I know the history of the Gospel of John, and I know the history of historical inquiry concerning New Testament studies.
So Jason, watch this.
But we can play semantics. You love to play semantics all the time.
No, you've just questioned the method. No, you've just questioned the method, and let Ijaz explain it.
Right. So there's a book on the historicity of the resurrection by Dr. Michael, what's his name, Nazam? Michael Lacona, right? In that book on the resurrection, he gives 3 methods for historical inquiry. One is called methodical credulity, one is called methodical neutrality, and one is called methodical skepticism. You just said to me that you can't use methodical neutrality if you have presuppositions. You are confusing the words because you don't understand the term. The term methodical neutrality, one more time, is very simple. You bring a positive case in case of methodical credulity, or you apply a negative case, methodical skepticism. So you reject everything and you don't accept it until someone proves it. Or methodical credulity, you accept everything first, then you question it. Methodical neutrality does not mean we need to be neutral. Methodical neutrality means our method is neutral, and what that means, we don't implicitly accept everything, and it does not mean that we implicitly reject everything. What we wait for is either you bring your case, then we respond to it. We analyze it and we break it down. So the method has nothing to do with presuppositions. It has to do with how you approach the evidence, depending on how you lay it out. So it refers to the structure and the ideas which work within that structure. So do you understand now what methodical neutrality is? So you as a Christian, Jason, do you understand that you're applying methodical credulity? You accept the Gospels as true, and therefore your points follow from that. We are saying we neither accept nor reject the Gospel as true. Bring your points forward, point out our mistakes, errors, or misunderstandings, and we can engage with it. So I don't want to hear this sensible methodology.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you. I've read his book, the main book that you're quoting twice. I actually have a quotation here from his book, page 109, 111. A New Historical Approach, 2010, and he talks about explanatory scope, explanatory power, possibility of hypothesis, less ad hoc and illumination. So I'm quite adapt to that book. I know that book very well. I know his PhD very, very well and his scholarship. In that book, he makes it very, very clear that that getting objectivity is not easy, and he uses critical realism. And critical realism means there is no objectivity. There is no complete objectivity. You come as a Muslim, I come with my Christian glasses, you come with your Muslim glasses. No matter how methodological neutrality you claim to have, you're still looking at it from your Islamic perspective, and you cannot look at it objectively. You
Jason,
have to defend your Quran when you're using methodological neutrality. And secondly, in Islamic scholarship, wait a minute, just let me finish. In Islamic scholarship, you know and I know that there are different methods in historical inquiry. The Islamic methodology in history and doing history and in historical inquiry is in no way the same as Western methods of historical inquiry. Hadith scholarship and the methods that you use are not the same. So again, you're proving my point that you're biased and you're not acknowledging your bias.
Just 1 second, Ijaz. Jason, have we said anything on this stream or last week's stream that you disagree with? And if we have,
yes,
can you tell us what that is?
Yes, your whole attack on the gospel.
No. What have we said specifically that you've disagreed with in this stream or last week's stream?
Hamza, I love you, bro. I've listened to a lot of what you've said in these streams, and one of the things that comes out,
what have we said that you've disagreed with?
You guys, no, listen, but let me finish, bro. The thing that comes out with you guys is you're not acknowledging your bias, and it comes out so plainly.
What have we said about the reliability of the Gospel of John that you've disagreed with, if anything?
What you've said is you said, I don't agree with the genealogies. I don't agree with
no. Give me an example of something. Jason, forget the methodology. Just tell us something we've said when we've questioned the historicity of the Gospels that we've presented as a case that we don't think is historical. Yeah, what have we said that you can refute, if anything? Because I don't believe there's anything we said you can refute, Jason. I challenge you now. Name one thing that we've said that you can refute in all of the streams.
On textual criticism, Ijaz has mentioned concerning the last.
No, Jason. On the historicity of the New Testament. Name one thing.
You see, you're scared.
That you can challenge.
You're scared, bro. You're scared now. Listen, it is on history because you say that in the last ending of Mark, you're saying that it doesn't talk about the resurrection. So that's about history.
Done. All right, is that the point?
Wait a minute. Okay. When we get to the textual criticism, let me finish, Hamza. You asked me a question.
Yeah.
Again,
fantastic.
Hamza, Ijaz, when he's doing textual criticism, is using bias. He's using a certain method of bias in textual criticism.
You do it without the bias, then. Can you do it without the bias?
Listen, the manuscript. Let me finish. Let me finish, bro. What are you scared of? You challenge me. I'm giving you the answer.
Right. So you're saying that when we spoke about the ending of Mark, what's your point? Just clarify your point, and then you can explain it. What did we say that we got wrong?
My point, bro, is you don't know what you're talking about, and I'm trying to explain to you. So sit down.
I don't want you to tell me that we don't know what we're talking about. You can do that by demonstrating what we said that you disagreed with. It's so simple,
bro. Don't make no challenges if you can't take the challenge. I'm coming for you. You asked me a question. I'm giving you the answer. Now be quiet.
Give me the answer.
Let me give me the answer.
Can I ask a question? Actually,
he makes a statement about the questions about the last ending of Mark, and his textual criticism is using a certain Nessel method of text and Allen textual criticism, and that is a biased methodology using principally the Alexandrian text. Egyptian text, which is one way of looking at textual criticism, and he's not being consistent.
And what was the point being made by that claim?
Wait a minute. Let me finish, sir. His own textual criticism, he will not do it on the Quran, so he's contradicting himself.
Jason,
point, bro,
what is the point you're making from that claim?
My point, bro, is I've just showed you that his methodology is using Alexandrian text, which is one group of texts, when you've got thousands of other texts.
Okay. So using that, text. So him using that Alexandrian text, what was the point he was making?
The point is, he was questioning whether it was historically reliable, whether it was in the text itself. That's what he was questioning.
If what was in the text itself?
At the end of Mark, yes.
Right. Do you believe it was in the end?
Of course, I believe it's in the end. I believe because his methodology.
Right.
His methodology. His methodology. Listen, let me finish. His methodology is biased because he's only using one methodology concerning textual criticism.
Okay.
Listen,
just so I understand now, just clarify.
No, listen. When it comes to the Quran, you're not consistent. You don't use
Jason,
the same methodology.
When it comes to the Quran, you can ask what you like. Don't worry. Okay, so just so I understand, Ijaz, the claim by Jason is this. When you said about the ending of the Gospel of Mark, right, wasn't in the original text, you're wrong about that. Okay, so that's Jason's claim. He's saying the ending of Mark definitely was part of the original Gospel. Yeah?
Yep.
So now Jason's going to tell us why he believes that.
Yep, Jason, go right
No, wait a minute. We're not playing your game. You asked me, you challenged me, right? And I put out some information where I'm saying his methodology is biased. He's got to prove that his methodology. Wait a minute. He's got to prove that his. No, wait a minute. He's got to prove his methodology is not biased, and then I'll give you some evidence.
He doesn't.
Hold on.
You need to demonstrate that and support your claim that the ending of Mark was in the original Gospel, Mark. You have to demonstrate that.
Do you believe it was original, Hamza? Do you believe it was original?
No, I don't believe it was.
Why?
Guys.
Why?
Let me just.
Why?
Jason.
Why, Hamza?
Respectfully, Jason.
Hamza, why?
Jason,
Hamza, why?
To respond to your points, right? You just said to me that I am biased in my methodology because I'm using the Nestle Allen text. Small problem with that, Jason. Almost all translations in the English rely on the Nestle Allen text. I'm not the one that created the group. I'm not the one that published the book. It's the University of Munster, has the INTF. It is an organization at that university with scholars from diverse backgrounds that come to these conclusions. So for you to say, Ijaz, you are biased, I'm biased because I use Christian scholarship to argue against Christian points. I didn't know that was being biased. Now, there's something that you said which was kind of funny. You said, Ijaz uses the Alexandrian text. He doesn't consider any of the others. Simple response to this. What is the earliest manuscript for the pericope adultery? In which case it was not added by a second hand to the manuscript? Simple question, because evidence matters. So give me the earliest one that contains the pericope, which was added by the initial scribe, not by the second hand. So I've asked a question. Is that right, Darwin? I've asked a question.
Yes.
All I want is the name of the manuscript and its year. That's all I'm asking. Simple.
I'm going to answer you. In the Beginner's Companion of the Arabic Manuscripts, which is on your website that you offer to people, on here it says the oldest manuscripts does not necessarily mean the best manuscripts. So are you saying that the oldest manuscripts are the best manuscripts? Because in your Arabic Companion, it says, wait a minute, it says when ancient Islamic scholars were copying books, they had a belief that let me finish, Ijaz. Let me finish, bro. This is on your website, so don't get scared. This is on your website. You offer this to people to go and download. And here it says that the oldest manuscript does not necessarily mean it is the best manuscript. So you're actually contradicting your own material that you're giving out, bro.
Right, thank you, Jason. When I put my finger up, that is a signal to the others that I want to speak next. I didn't know that putting my finger up bothered you that much that you had to keep interrupting yourself. The finger up means I want to speak next. Do you understand? Good. Now, secondly, you just said to me that the oldest manuscript is not the best. I did not make the claim that the oldest manuscripts are the best. Rather, I am simply asking a very straightforward question. There are groups of manuscripts. You agree that there's the Alexandrian text, Caesarean, Western, and Byzantine. Out of all of these texts, I'm not sticking to one. Listen to the question now. Out of all of these, what is the earliest one with the pericope adultery? Simple adultery. You know that
one of the The earliest reference is with Saint Augustine. Actually, Saint Augustine actually references it.
No, not the reference to it. The earliest manuscript.
Yeah. No. Well, if it's a reference, that means the manuscript was even before that, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't, Jason. One more time to the
It
question.
does.
One
Well,
more
I
time.
take Saint Augustine more than you do, bro. I take him more reliable than you. Let me finish my point.
Hold
Let
on,
me
Jason,
finish my
I
point.
asked you a
You made the
question.
point. Wait a minute. Let me finish. You made the point that all the scholarship.
Jason,
Listen. No, let me finish.
Jason,
Put your
I
hand
asked
down and
you a
listen.
question.
No, you've
Jason,
made your
I
point.
asked you a question.
Ijaz,
No, I didn't
Jason,
let's get into
answer
the
the question.
scholarship.
Simple question, mate.
Jason,
I'm
Jason,
going to answer the question. Let me get
He
into
just asked
the
you a simple
scholarship.
question.
Jason,
Let me
stop.
get
Jason,
into the scholarship.
Jason, one more time. I'm not going to
Let
ask
me
you.
get
I'm
into the
trying to be
scholarship.
very kind. I'm trying to be very
Let
kind
me
to
get.
you because I don't want to
Let
beat
me.
you up on the head, right? I'm being kind, right? So, Jason, listen to my question again. You said to me your presupposition was Ijaz only chooses from one of the 4 text clusters. I just said to you, forget that there's one main reliable one. I'm allowing you to go to the entire body of the 28,600 and whatever manuscripts which exist. And I am asking you, what is the earliest copy of this story?
Let me finish. I'm going to finish. Let me finish. Let me
finish
finish.
my point, for goodness sake. Right,
If you're not
Jason?
going to answer the question, Jason, what's the point?
Right, let me finish my point, Jason. I don't understand. When I want to speak, I raise my hand, I let you finish. You interrupt me. I don't understand this. So yes, I know the people in the chat find his behavior reprehensible. Forgive him. He's just excited. He's finally on screen with Darwin, Ijaz, Nizam, Imran, and Ben. So the question is simple. It doesn't matter to me that St. Augustine references the story. Does he reference the story and says this belongs in the Gospel of John? Simple question. Does he say that?
Gospel of Mark.
Yes, he does actually. Yes, he does.
Okay. Quote it for us, please.
I can get sweetheart. Do we have J.C. Ryle? J.C. Ryle, in his book, he has a reference of the references there. Let me just finish.
Hold on, Jason. I didn't ask you where he
referenced. Let me finish.
Jason.
Let me finish.
Jason,
Can I
one
finish?
more time. Jason, one more time. Listen to my question. You just said to us that St. Augustine said that this story fits into the Gospel of John.
Mark.
Right, sorry, Mark, right? What you have hold on, we were talking about the pericope adult or the
We're talking about the ending of Mark.
Yeah, oh, okay, that's even better. That makes my job easier. Okay, good, brilliant. Sorry, I thought that we were on the Gospel of John stream.
No, I know, but he brought up the ending of Mark, so
Okay.
I let him roll with it.
Yeah, you should know what we're talking about, brother. I mean, keep on the topic. I mean,
well,
this is the Gospel of John stream, so I think you're the one who's off topic.
It sounds like it just sounds like Biden.
Hold on.
Go on, bro.
Hold on. Jason, so the question I
help
asked
him to remember what we're talking about.
Jason, well, at least
Jason, just stop interrupting and let him get on with it.
So, Jason, you just said to me that St. Augustine wrote that this story belongs in the Gospel of Mark. Does he say that, or does he merely reference the story? Which one does he do?
No, wait a minute. When I was talking about St. Augustine, you was asking about the Gospel of John. You're getting confused, bro. Keep on track. Keep on track. We're on the Gospel of Mark now. Are we on the Gospel of Mark or the Gospel of John?
Jason, you keep jumping between the Gospels and then telling me I'm getting confused. Which one are you making the claim that St. Augustine references? Which one?
Listen, you're so confused. You don't even know what Gospel you're talking about. Listen, you said here, bro, you said that all scholars believe in this. You said Alan didn't believe in all the New Testament books. That's what you said. So you're saying that the Nestle Greek Testament that Alan and Nestle and all scholarship follow, the guy who composed this doesn't believe all the New Testament books. Those are from your words on your website.
I never said
that's
all
number one.
Number two. Hold on. I never speak in absolutes.
Let me finish.
So I never said all scholarship says
that. Ijaz, you don't have to put your hand up, bro. We're not at school. Keep your hand down and listen.
I'm trying to be polite because I might use the wrong
thing. This is your scholarship that you've put on your website. And it says, my point is this says, on the Gospel of Mark, if you look at the Sinaiticus or Alexandria, I can't remember, it's a few days ago since I looked at it. I've got the information here actually, but I'll bring it out in a minute for you.
Jason,
but if you look at the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, let me finish. If you look at the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, one of those manuscripts has a big gap which shows you that they knew the Gospel of Mark, the last ending was there.
Are you finished? Is that your point? So they
That's
knew
my
it was
first point.
right. So I'll respond to that point. They
If you
didn't
want the
include
scholarship on the Gospel of Mark, I'll find my
they didn't
notes.
include, right. So Jason, did they include it? They left that big gap, but they didn't include it. I wonder why. Very strange, right, guys? Why did the scribe in the scriptorium did not include that section of the text for the Gospel of Mark?
Because where is Sinaiticus and Vaticanus from, Ijaz?
Sinaiticus is from the Sinai, one of the towns along the Nile River, most likely.
Did you say most likely? Did you say most likely, Ijaz?
I said most likely because we know that it came from a scriptorium as commanded by who's the guy in 393?
No. The oldest manuscripts that we have, come from Egypt, Ijaz. Didn't you know that?
I said the Nile. Where's the Nile? And where's the Nile River?
Oh, okay, I didn't hear you properly. Yeah.
So you're correcting me. Hold on. You're being a bit rude. You're trying to say I don't know where it is. I mentioned the Nile River and the towns along it.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you said Sinai. I thought you said the Sinai. The internet here went a bit blurred. Sorry about that. I apologize. So you acknowledge it's from Egypt, yes? It's from Egypt, bro.
In Northern Europe.
Are you aware from 100 to 300 AD what in Egypt was going on concerning Christianity and the development of theology? Are you aware of that?
Are you going to claim now that the rival churches with rival people had rival ideologies and they were burning each other's books, therefore it can't be relied upon? Is that the argument?
No. What is the name of the main theology that was going there?
Of the main theology, Nestorianism. Yeah. I know that.
In Alexandria, for example.
Well, I know that there was Nestorianism. I know that there was Gnosticism. I know that along the Nile, there were two specific towns. One is Oxyrhynchus, and I forget the next one, where they actually copied more deuterocanonical book outside of the main body of the New Testament. Yeah. That answers your question. Now what? Second question.
So did you say Gnosticism?
Yeah, I did mention Gnosticism.
Yeah, Gnosticism. So in Alexandria, there was a strong emphasis and influence on Gnosticism. And if you read the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, is there any signs of Gnosticism within those texts?
I don't believe so, no.
No. Did the Gnostics believe in the Trinity?
It depends. Not all groups of Gnostics are the same, and you're moving away from the point, which is you claimed that the lost ending of Mark belongs in the Gospel of Mark. I asked you why. This is not about theology, but about history. So please answer the question: why does the lost ending of Mark?
Question.
No, so you asked the question: which manuscript contains it? What's the earliest manuscript from any body of manuscripts?
What I'm trying, I can give you the manuscripts here. There's manuscripts here.
Yeah. So what's the earliest manuscript that contains it?
I'll give you. You can read this book. There's a scholarship there.
No, just tell us. Just tell us the name of the manuscript and the date of it.
Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point.
No, Jason, you're not making a point. Ijaz asked you a question. No, Jason. Ijaz asked you a question. No, Ijaz asked you a question. What is the earliest manuscript that contains the ending of Mark? It's a very simple question.
Let me finish. I'm not going to let you finish.
It's not for you to finish. It's for you to answer Ijaz's question. You've got to answer Ijaz's question. What is the earliest manuscript? What is the earliest manuscript that contains the ending of Mark?
I'm not going to be shouting over you.
What is the earliest manuscript that contains the ending of the Gospel of Mark? Just answer that question, please.
I've got the notes here.
Keep turning around, saying you've got the manuscripts, getting the notes, and you come back with nothing. Tell us what is the earliest manuscript. Please.
Look at the notes. Look at the notes.
Oh, tell us the notes.
Just tell us the
point at books. Like, yeah, I know that. I know it. Don't worry about it. We want to.
What is the earliest manuscript?
Wait a minute.
Come on, could I ask a question, guys? Please, if I could just. Imran, you guys have been talking.
Yeah, Imran's not talking much this stream.
Jason, I really appreciate you coming on because I know you've had trouble coming on, and I've sort of been listening to try and to see what you're going to say. And to be honest with you, I haven't heard. I'm just waiting for a couple of things really. You've shown us a lot of books that you have in your possession, that contain information that might be useful for us. You've shown us lots of notes that you have. You said, I think you held something up and said it has 51 historical points from the proof that the historicity of the Gospel of John. You've shown, you keep talking about notes that you have that contain information that proves the longer ending of Mark should be present. But actually, you're not telling us this information. So I'd really appreciate it, and I think everyone would really appreciate it, if you could just actually give us some of these facts that you were talking about in John that prove its historicity, or give us the manuscripts that show the long ending of Mark should be there.
Keep him on Mark.
Because otherwise, what we're talking about knowledge that you may have, but we're not actually getting that knowledge. So I'd appreciate, for me, as someone who isn't sort of so much into the historicity as you are, quite clearly, I just give me some of the salient facts that would me as a non-Christian would accept Mark or John because we're talking about John today, but Mark, the longer ending of Mark you're talking about, is historically reliable. How would I, as a non-Christian, come to that conclusion? And you can use any methodology you like. You can use any methodology you like.
I've got. I'll put it under your link later after. I've got a paper, a book written on the last ending of Mark that goes into the scholarship, but I've got so many notes here. I can't know everything. But I
understand. I appreciate that you don't know everything. So what I'm asking for is, from what you do know, can you give us something that we can take and use that as a point?
Yeah.
So that we can say, okay, this point establishes the historicity of either the long ending of Mark, or this point establishes the historicity of John. Any piece of information that we can then talk about, because at the moment we're talking about your notes and the links and the books, it's not unfair of me to say, look, the question you've asked me, the answer is in this book, and then carry on, because that's not going to give anyone any information. And I don't want to sort of belittle you, but that's really what I'm hearing. I've got it in this book. I've read this book. We want the information from that, please, so that we can then make the conversation move forward. So imagine you're not talking to Ijaz, you're not talking to Hamza, you're talking to me. I'm not a historian by any stretch of the imagination. What things can you tell me? I can then say that the longer ending of Mark is there, or any facts from John that would make me establish that John is historically reliable, please.
I'll post you the information on the Gospel of Mark, a book that was recently written on the Gospel of Mark, goes into the scholarship. You're asking me questions all the time. I've asked you questions. None of you've answered the questions properly.
Jason,
you've never answered
questions.
Like, we've had lots of weeks to.
You've had one question, Jason. Let me rephrase the question. Do you know what the earliest manuscript that contains the long ending of Mark is? Because I don't think you do.
Well, he read a book twice, and he missed the most important information in it seems.
I don't understand why he's not answering that question.
I can answer the question.
I just found the question in Google in like 2 seconds. But I don't know why Jason's not answering the question.
I mean, he went off to ask me, what happened to Alexandria? Where's Sinai? I answered.
Because here's the thing, you see, Ijaz, he challenged you in saying that you just referred to the Alexandrian text and such, yeah? But you bring from any body of texts.
It doesn't...
the Byzantine text, there are 5,000 of those texts, and the last ending of Mark's in those texts. The Gospel of... Wait a minute, the Gospel of John, the woman committing adultery is in 5,000 ancient manuscripts. Now, they might not be the oldest...
What's the earliest?
But the Byzantine. But you're just playing silly games. You don't even know what the oldest is.
I'm asking you what the earliest is.
He wants us to answer the question.
You don't even know. I know, but I can't remember everything. I can't rember everything.
But I can remember
that the last. Let me finish. The last ending of Mark is in at least 5,000 ancient manuscripts. It's in Latin manuscripts. It's in Syriac. It's in many other types of manuscripts. Wait a minute. But my argument was in your text, in your Islamic text that's on his website, the oldest manuscripts are not necessarily the best.
Yeah, he just has already said that.
That was the main argument. That was the main argument that he didn't deal with.
That was not the main argument, and I responded.
And he jumped on it, and to try and get away with it, you try and get to some specific things where you know that I can't know everything about everything. Yeah.
Well, you seem to know nothing because you're not.
Could I ask a question, please?
Hold on. Let me just respond to the argument.
Sorry,
he just said to me, what was it? The oldest manuscript is the best. I never said that because I never laid my argument on the oldest manuscripts having it. I'm saying it's not present in any of the early manuscripts. That's different. The word there is plural. So over 2 centuries, we never find the lost ending in any of the earliest manuscripts that come not just from the Alexandrian text, but also present in the Byzantine, Western, and Caesarean. So the very earliest from all 4 groups do not contain that lost ending. So everyone in the chat seems to understand that point. Darren, did I not explain that earlier?
You did.
Dr. Imran, did I not explain that to him earlier?
Yeah.
You did.
See, this is what spawned your question, because if it's not in the earliest text, what text is it in? Because Jason seems to be ignoring the fact it's not in the earliest text, and he's taking the later texts. And the question then has to be, why?
I've told you the family text. I've told you the Byzantine text, which is 5,000 texts. His is only 2. His is only 2. Mine's 5,000.
Sorry, which has got 5,000? Which has got 5,000?
Wait a minute. The Byzantine text.
Okay.
5,000.
And is the long ending of mark in that?
Yes.
Is the long ending of mark in the Byzantine text?
Yes.
From which date?
And when we commit an adultery, and there's 5,000 of those texts.
From which date?
And the Alexandrian text is only 2. It's only 2. 2.
From which
wait a minute.
date?
2 against 5,000. And because they're not the oldest, scholars reject them and put emphasis on the oldest, which is the Alexandrian from Egypt. But the Byzantine is from a wide spectrum of the many different nations.
From which date?
Whereas this, wait a minute, this is only from, you don't even know the Byzantine text. What's the Byzantine text, Hamza?
Watch this. So Jason said...
No.
I'm not interested in your red herrings, mate. Listen to Ijaz. You might learn something.
No. Hamza, what are the Byzantine texts?
I'm assuming they're manuscripts from Byzantium.
Right, you don't know, and so don't start putting it on me when you can't deal with it, bro.
What are you about?
He's right.
I asked you a simple question. I'm learning here. You're the one who is saying Ijaz was wrong about the long end of mark, and you're presenting your case. So obviously we're going to question your case. So you're now saying the Byzantine texts have the long ending of mark. My next question is, most of scholarship in Christianity rejects that. So why do you accept it and everyone else rejects it? Why are you right and all the other scholars are wrong?
Hamza, you got fingers on your hand.
Would you? Let me finish. Would you accept? Let me finish, Ijaz. Would you, Ijaz, accept a scholar, an Islamic scholar? Wait a minute. Would you accept an Islamic scholar who said the Quran is not inspired, doing textual criticism on the Quran?
Right. So let me respond to
Nestle and Alan, I think it's Alan you mentioned, doesn't believe all the New Testament books should be in the Bible.
Right. So
there's biased scholarship behind this, and he's using that biased scholarship. And even though it might be the majority scholarship, it doesn't mean that we can accept it if it's biased.
I'm just going to address the elephant in the room, mate. I think you're biased. Be honest with you. Talk about other people you're biased. Anyway, go on.
Hamza. Right. So Hamza,
I acknowledge my bias, bro, but you don't acknowledge your bias.
Jason,
I'm not defending the New Testament, mate.
Right, so
you don't acknowledge your bias, bro. You don't acknowledge your bias. I acknowledge my bias, but my bias is better than your bias.
Right, so Hamza, just with your hand on the screen, count with me with your fingers, right?
Go on.
Right, so let's see if we get more than 2. So Codex Sinaiticus, 1. Codex Vaticanus, 2. The Syriac family of manuscripts. Ooh, that's a family. That's more than one. The Coptic Syriac family. 4. Is that more than 2 so far, Hamza? It's more than 2, right? Let's keep going. The manuscripts according to Eusebius. That's a family again. 5. That's more than 2. Let's go again. The manuscripts according to Jerome. 6. Guys, it's more than 2. Is the manuscript of Hezekiah. 7. The manuscript according to Severus. 8. Hold on, I thought that was only 2. Is that more than 2, Hamza?
8.
Yeah, but that includes families, which means it's not individual manuscripts, but families of manuscripts. Which, guess what? You guys want to hear the kicker? Yeah, that includes Byzantine manuscripts as well.
Can I finish?
Nope.
You don't know anything about textual criticism. Can I finish? Ijaz, you don't know anything about textual criticism. You don't know anything about textual criticism. It's absolutely dead certain. If you go into scholarship, if you look at Dan Wallace, he says he uses other manuscripts that you say, right? But the fact of the matter is, the reality is, since Westcott and Hort, you know who Westcott and Hort is, don't you? Do you know them?
No, Santa Claus, is that Santa Claus? I don't know who Westcott and Hort is, but their first critical
So you don't even know where the theory of this textual criticism come from. You don't even know that, but never mind. Westcott and Hort came up with this theory of using these texts. Listen. You're not listening to me. So listen, please.
But you're not listening to Ijaz.
Yeah, watch this.
Listen,
watch this.
You're scared.
I don't
he doesn't
know
even know who Westcott and Hort is, or he's not read them.
He just answered sarcastically that he doesn't know who they are because he knows who they are.
Have you read them? Have you read Westcott and Hort?
Watch this question. Jason,
Have you read Westcott and Hort?
One more time. Jason, how many critical emendations did they include in their first edition, critical edition? How many conjectural emendations did they include in their first edition of their critical edition? Because you seem to have studied who Westcott and Hort are. So just tell me, how many?
Oh, let's get to this, bro. Wait a minute. Conjectural emendations. Do you agree with conjectural emendations? Because I don't agree with textual. No, listen. I don't agree with.
I'm asking for your opinion on the matter, Jason.
Listen.
And how many conjectural emendations did
Jason is asking for your opinion? He's not asking for your opinion.
Listen.
This is a waste of time.
Coming back to what I was saying. You're not listening. Coming back to what I was saying.
No, Jason, you're not listening. Ijaz asked you a question of a statement of fact, an objective fact.
Conjectural emendation. Listen, conjectural emendation is something that I do not subscribe to, and he does not subscribe to, yet he is using that methodology. He is using that scholarship.
No, but how many did Westcott and Hort put in their book?
Conjectural emendation is a subjective methodology that he does not subscribe to, and I don't subscribe to, and he's not being consistent because he uses that scholarship against the Bible, and I don't.
Could I ask a question, guys? Because this is going around in circles a little bit.
Honestly.
Jason, could you do me a favor, please? I was asking for any evidence that you have to hand. Any evidence that you have to hand.
Let's go to John chapter 6.
Jason, let him ask the question.
Jason, what are you doing?
Let's hear the question, Jason. Just give me any evidence that you have to hand that demonstrates the historicity of the Gospel of John, or any evidence that you have to hand that demonstrates the longer ending of the Gospel of Mark is historically reliable. So something that's actually evidence that we can look at and then we can maybe talk about. Because all I'm really hearing is sort of someone trying to pull the leaves off a tree and not going for the trunk. Go for the trunk. Present the evidence.
There it is. You can pass me that there. Oh, I'll get it.
The irony of saying that we're not listening is unreal.
I've got it here. I've got the information here.
What information have you got for us, Jason?
If you look at this, I can read it out to you. It's got the information. It's a book by the original ending of Mark by Nicholas P. L. Lund. And I can read you the manuscript from here if you want me to read it out.
Read the earliest one.
Please do. If you could read the earliest one for us, Jason, we'd appreciate that.
Are you ready? I'm going to read it. The introduction chapter opens up with the authenticity. Right. It says, so the introduction sets the scene. The aim of the book is that chapter 16 of Mark to 9 to 20 is precisely the ending of Mark. He goes into the eternal evidence, biblical manuscript. Long argues that the absence of 16 verse 9 to 20 is a fairly localized textual variant which had no earlier explicit witness before the 4th century. External evidence, patristic citation. Lund will agree that evidence of the knowledge of 16 to 920 reaches back into the 2nd century, including some significant previously overlooked allusions to the Markian ending in the Apostolic Fathers. Linguistic evidence, vocabulary and style. Lund will argue against the widespread view that the style of 16 verse 9 to 20 is distinctive and non-Markan, that The language of 16:920 falls within the observable parameters of marking usage. Linguistic evidence of the features. One will argue that a range of deeper level linguistic features can be shown to actually provide evidence that supports marking authorship. Literary evidence. One will agree.
Right. So the earliest manuscript was what?
What was the earliest manuscript? The question was, what was the earliest manuscript?
Jason, can I just clarify something? Just so for my Jason, can I ask you?
In relation to Codex, listen, in relation to Codex Vaticanus, Lomberry notices. Wait a minute. If you read the book.
Listen, please, just tell us which manuscript. Can you just tell us which manuscript, please? I beg of thee.
Could I just ask a quick question,
Listen,
Jason?
If you're going to laugh,
it's not a teenage debate.
It's not a teenage debate. It's not a teenage debate. This is a top scholar, and this scholar is well respected, and you're laughing. And this is
you're laughing because you're not answering the question, mate.
No,
we're laughing because you're not answering the question.
I've got the information here, but you're not patient enough to let me look at it.
You just read from it. You just read from it, and you didn't answer the question. You read from all, I don't know how many chapters, and you went, see? It's like, see what?
No, if you're laughing, there's the book. You don't want to hear the information there. You're laughing.
Jason,
it's not a teenage debate. You're being silly and childish and stupid.
Just
childish and stupid.
One, please.
Now, turn with me to
guys,
John
can you let
chapter
Imran
6.
speak?
Turn with me to John chapter 6. Turn with me to John chapter 6. John chapter 6.
It's not doing a teenage debate.
My wife's getting annoyed with you now, so behave.
Behave and just listen to him. He asks question, you ask question, and then he answers. Then we know it's a fair play.
He didn't answer the question though. He read from a book.
So, Jason, if I can clarify the question very quickly before you go to John 6. I think one of the things we wanted to know was...
Okay, John chapter 6, on the feeding of the 5,000.
What's this got to do with anything?
What's the point now you're making, Jason?
How many words are in John chapter 6 on the feeding of 5,000?
Jason, can I just stop you just for a second, please? Let me explain the format of what we do here so you understand it, because you're not getting it. I'll say it again. Make your point. Demonstrate a claim we've made, which is wrong. Or if you're going to start quoting from the Gospel of John of the feeding of the 5,000, first say what point you're making. Because you're just saying it in a vacuum. We don't know what you're talking about. You're supposed to be either defending the Gospel of John or presenting evidence of the Gospel of John being historically reliable. That's what you're here to do. And as Imran politely asked you, just because no Christian has done it yet, and we got great hope in you. You're not even listening.
Hamza, is it correct that he never gave the earliest manuscript with it?
He still hasn't given us the earliest manuscript. No. I'm assuming he doesn't know it, or he's scared of the ramifications of what his answer will be.
He doesn't know it. That's right. He doesn't know it.
But the point here is this. You have to tell us the point you're making before you start demonstrating it. Do you understand, Jason?
You know, I think, Jason, because you're used to teaching people, I'm sure you teach, is that right, isn't it, Jason? So I think because you're used to teaching people, one of the methods that we use as teachers is we use the Socratic method, which is we ask lots of questions, which is fine when you're dealing with students who wouldn't have an understanding of what's going on. But I think when you're speaking to, people like Brother Ijaz and Hamza and Nazem who have, quite a good knowledge on the topic, it's probably really good to make the point that you're making and then give the evidence for that point. So all I was really after as a non-historian here is really to know what evidence that you have for the ending of the Gospel of Mark being there. So for me, I would assume that would mean referring to the earliest available manuscript and saying this earliest available manuscript has this ending. There you go, done deal. Unless you ascribe to what you perceive to be the Muslim methodology, which it seems like you don't. The other thing that would be really useful is that give us, because this is a stream about the Gospel of John, any evidence that you, amongst the 51 points that you had, that would demonstrate the historicity of John? So then we can talk about some of these points. So either the earliest manuscript that you know of with the ending of Mark, the long ending, from the Byzantine family that you mentioned, or if you could give us anything from the Gospel of John that you believe historically proves its historicity for us. Any one of those things, Jason, we'd really appreciate that.
Lund says, just by the way, Lund says that everyone knows that the numerical advantage is overwhelmingly with Greek manuscripts, versions, and fathers attesting these. Page 24. My wife will find the manuscript for me. Okay, that's in his book.
Can I just Google it?
Can I just?
I've Googled it. Can't you just Google it, mate?
When you're doing scholarship, you're supposed to be respectful, and the way you are, laughing and childish in behavior, that's why people are not coming on. And I'm trying to do you a favor here so that you can engage in some scholarship. I've read the book. I know the book. I've read it at least once. I've read it more than that. I can't remember everything. I can give
Jason,
you the bare history.
For 40 minutes, you've ignored the question, mate.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Please. I can demonstrate my point, which the point was that when Ijaz quoted that and said about those manuscripts, he says he's not saying that the oldest are the best, but by definition, he said the scholarship, all the scholars accept this. So by definition, he's going with all the scholarships, which they do say, and by implication, he's saying that they are the best. And in his arguments and debates,
so you just understand, you go against.
He goes, let me finish. Let me finish. And because you're scared to go on any more points, you're trying to pin me down on this issue because you're scared of me going into more detail and information. You're frightened of what I'm about to say.
We're scared.
You're scared. You're frightened to death.
Jason, you can't even answer a simple question, mate.
Frightened. No, you're frightened to death because you're laughing and interrupting and you're scared.
Jason, you need to watch this video and see your behavior, mate, because you're giving this mock outrage and you've been very disrespectful yourself, mate.
Yeah, you've been telling us to sit down and wagging your finger at us, raising your voice. Hold on. Jason,
you're not Mr. Perfect.
Jason, so just to be clear, I answered your question where the Sinai is. I answered your question where the scriptorium is. I answered your question on how many early manuscripts have it and what year. I think I mentioned some of the text clusters. The one question I asked you was, what was the earliest manuscript with the inclusion of the gospel?
We'll get that information for you, and we've given you a reference. In debate and scholarship, if you give a reference, I've given you the reference of the book, and I've given the details are in the first chapter of the book. And my wife's having a look.
But don't you answer the question and then give the reference?
We're not able to answer your question.
That's how it works.
You guys
answer a question. You answer a question and then you give a reference to your answer.
You don't even know the history of scholarship in the area.
Challenge to the chat. So in the chat, type Y if you want me to boot him, or no if you want him to remain. Let's see.
Turn to John chapter 6.
Why do we need to turn to John chapter 6?
Because you want historical evidence, and I'm giving it to you.
All right. So what's the historical evidence?
Well, have a look at John chapter 6.
No, I don't want to. You tell me what it is.
Have a look at it. Read it.
No, you tell me what the evidence is.
You read it for us, please, Jason.
I believe you. I believe you.
So the guy won't even read the text, and yet he wants evidence.
Just read it out.
It's a teenage debate, Hamza. Read the text.
Chapter 6 did you want us to read, please?
Why do I need to read the text?
Read it.
Which part of John?
Read the feeding of the 5,000 for us. Read it. The feeding of the 5,000.
No, you read it for us.
Will it demonstrate?
No, you read it. You want the evidence, so you read it.
No, I'm getting evidence.
Nazam, could you read it for us? It'll be a lot easier. It'll be a lot quicker if we read it. And Nazam's got it.
Let me read it. One second. John chapter 6, yeah? 1 second.
Yeah.
One second. Bible. John. What verse?
Read the whole of the feeding of the 5,000.
What verse is that at?
From verse 25.
Verse 25. All right. And which Bible? NIV or KJV?
Which Quran? Which Quran? The wars.
I thought I was reading from the Bible.
Which Quran? Halves, wars. Come on, we could all play that game, bro.
What's that got to do? Right, I think.
Jason, now you're being
this is
facetious.
ridiculous.
I asked you a simple question. I've got the Bible app. Yeah. Which version of the Bible do you think is the most reliable? And I'll read from that one.
Whatever you want, bro. You use it. Use the halves or the wars, whichever one you want to use, but use the Bible, whichever one you want to use. Any, bro.
Anyone, yeah? English, New English Translation, Living Bibles, okay? Okay.
He's muted himself.
All right. No, I think Ben muted him. All right.
Okay.
This is from verse 25. This is from the NIV. I don't know if it's different in the KJV, but anyway. And the reason I asked that question, just so people in the chat know, the KJV doesn't use the earliest manuscripts. So therefore, we've already demonstrated that, for example, in the KJV contains fabricated verses, like, for example, in John 1:5-7 and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, when they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus answered, very truly, I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. Then they asked him, what must we do to do the work God requires? Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. So they asked him, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, very truly, I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from the heaven and gives life to the world. Do I need to continue? Do I need to continue?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Keep reading. Let me know. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have not seen me, and still you do not believe. All those the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. Okay. At this, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I come down from heaven? Do I have to continue, or is that it?
Just a little bit more, bro.
Oh, okay. Stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will be all taught by God. Everyone who has heard the Father and learned from him comes to me. No one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. Verily, I tell you, the one who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give up for the world. Then the Jews began to argue sharply among themselves, how can this man give us the flesh to eat? Is that enough?
Okay. Yeah.
Right, what does that demonstrate? So, what do you think that demonstrates?
Okay, well, I want to ask a question first.
What?
I want to ask a question.
You just told me to read from the Gospel of John 6 about the feeding of the 5,000 to demonstrate that the Gospel of John is a historically reliable source of information. What question are you going to ask me now?
I'm going to ask you, how many words are in that text?
No idea. Do I need to know?
Significant? Is it significant to historical inquiry, that question, or not?
Well, of course it would be.
Yeah. So what are the references? What other references are those verses in John in the Synoptic Gospels?
What?
Is it Matthew chapter 15 and Mark maybe chapter 6.
How does this demonstrate that the Gospel of John is a historical, reliable source of information?
It's not.
Luke
It's
chapter
going to
9,
demonstrate something else.
Matthew chapter 14. In Matthew,
Yeah,
there are
Mark 6 and
157.
Matthew 15, yeah.
Let me finish. Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point. So you didn't know the references. Matthew chapter. So you're doing historical inquiry. You don't even know the references. In Matthew there are 157 words in that text. Let me finish. Mark, there are 194 in that story. Luke, there are 153. John, there are 199. The number of words common to all of the three Gospels are 53. The number of words John has in common with all the others are 8. These are the words: 8, 5, 2, 5,000, 2 loaves, 12 baskets of pieces. The percentage of agreement between Matthew and Mark is 59%. In Matthew with Luke is 44%. In Luke with Mark is 40%. In John and Matthew is 8.5%. In John with Mark, 8.5%. And John with Luke, 6.5%. What does that tell you?
So they're not very well matched.
They're inconsistent.
And what does that tell you?
The Bible is fake news.
Well, what does that tell you?
It tells you that the gospel is not a reliable
historians.
source of information because they're inconsistent with one another.
So ask and answer.
Is that your evidence? Is that your evidence that the Gospel of John is historically reliable? Seriously, this is your big thing.
Could you tell me, Jason, where in Matthew?
No, I haven't finished yet.
Matthew, Mark, or Luke?
Oh, you are finished, Jason. You are finished.
About the bread of life, please.
So
because this discourse is about the bread of life. Can you tell me where Matthew, Mark, or Luke talk about the bread of life?
In Matthew chapter 14. It's in Matthew chapter 6.
No, can you,
and
what's the verse?
Please?
Luke chapter
Matthew
9.
chapter 6.
Mark chapter 6.
Mark or Matthew?
And Matthew chapter 14 and Mark chapter 6. And in which verse does Jesus say, "I am the bread of life"?
Which verse, Jason?
He said we have. Wait a minute. Let me finish. Let's read the text.
We're trying to. Tell us the reference, mate.
I'll give you the references.
Let's read the text. Let's read the text in Mark. We have only 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then order them.
Let me say, "I am the bread of life."
You're trying to distract me.
That was trying to distract you.
Jason, I'm asking because what you did was you asked us to read. You asked Hamza to read from the Gospel of John, chapter 6, and you wanted him to read the whole issue about the feeding of the many, and this was a discourse about being the bread of life. And then you told us how much percentages there were, which varied from 8% to about 40-50%, which shows actually there is not a great correlation. So the question that I'm asking is, as a person who's listening to the statements that are made in John, the thing that stuck out to me the most was, "I am the bread of life." Yeah, because it's a massive claim. Even the Jews grumbled about this within the narrative. So the question is if the other gospel writers were also there, and this is historical reliable event, we should see the statement replicate, the most important statement, the greatest claim in that speech section, also replicated in the other gospels. So now in Matthew chapter 14, verse 34 to 36, and Mark chapter 6, verse 53, I think is onwards, where we have the similar narrative. Tell us, please, where the bread of life is mentioned. "I am the bread of life."
Let me finish. I'm going to read Gordon D. Fee and what he says. Listen to this.
Could you read the Bible for me, please, Jason?
No, can you give us a reference? Listen, Jason, you've got to stop doing this. Jason,
we're asking you to read.
Imran just asked you a question, and you just ignored everything he said and said, "Let me finish." It was Imran's question. You're supposed to be starting the answer. So he asked you a simple question in the Gospel of Mark and the Gospel of Matthew, in the feeding of the 5,000, does Jesus refer to himself as the bread of life or not?
Let me finish and I'll answer. In page 122 by Gordon Fee, he says this: following conclusions from the statistics: Matthew with Mark 59%, Matthew with Luke 44%, Luke with Mark 40%, John and Matthew 8.5%, John and Mark 8.5%, John and Luke 6.5%. This is what he said. Listen, the following conclusions, Gordon Fee, one of the great scholars in the New Testament, the following conclusion seems inevitable. John represents clearly, listen, John represents clearly independent telling of the story. He uses only those words absolutely necessary to be telling the story, and even uses different Greek word for fish. The other three are just as clearly independent in some way. Those who know Greek recognize how improbable it is for two people independently to tell the same story in a narrative form and have a 60% agreement in words used and often in the exact word order. Take a further example in the word from Mark 13:14 and the parallel in Mark 24:15. Let the reader understand. These words can hardly have been a part of the oral tradition. It says reader, not hearer. And since in its earliest form, Mark, there is no mention of Daniel, it is unlikely to be a word of Jesus referring to Daniel. The words were therefore inserted into the saying of Jesus by one of the evangelists for the sake of his readers. It seems highly improbable that exactly the same parenthesis would have been inserted independently at exactly the same point by two authors writing independently. The best explanation of the data is the one we suggest earlier, that Mark wrote his gospel first, probably in part at least from his recollection of Peter's preaching and teaching. Luke and Matthew had access to Matthew's gospel and independently used it as a basic source for his own, but they also had access to all kinds of other material about Jesus, some of which they had in common. This common material, however, is scarcely ever presented in the same order in the two Gospels, a fact that suggests that neither one had access to the other's writing. Finally, John wrote independently of the other three, and thus his Gospel has little material in common with them. This, we would note, is how the Holy Spirit inspired the writing of the Gospels.
Oh, there's a theology thrown right at the end.
Watch this, guys. Watch this. Watch this. Jason, do you accept Gordon Fee as an authority on Scripture? Is he frozen?
What do you mean?
So you accept his authority, his opinion, you accept it. What he says about Scripture is authoritative for you.
Who?
The guy you just quoted from.
Gordon Fee. Who else?
Gordon Fee.
You accept what he says about
what he's
Scripture.
Talking about.
Because you know why you have to accept him on that bit? Because he rejects the longer ending of Mark. He agrees with me that the longer ending of Mark is unreliable. So hold on. The scholar that you're appealing to agrees with Ijaz.
This is not about textual criticism. This is not about textual criticism. This is a book based. This is a book based on reading the Bible, and there is a little bit in here on the NIV, and I don't agree with that. But that doesn't mean to say I can't use some of what he's saying.
So
you just said he's the greatest authority on the New Testament. Yeah, he disagrees with you, mate.
He's written a key book on Paul, the Apostle Paul. He's written a massive book on Paul, and that's a standard word.
Opinion on the longer ending of Mark? What is his opinion on it? Fake news. So the same guy you call.
I don't agree. I'm reformed. I'm from a reformed background. Kruger is a great textual critic. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with James White, but I can use James White. I can use Kruger. I can use.
Why don't you agree?
All right. Everything.
Why don't you agree with Gordon Fee? Are you a greater textual critic than him?
You're twisting the question. The question is, answer what he's saying. Do you agree with him or not? What I've just
read. Alex, all I heard in what you just read was the idea that we've already said over 7 streams that Mark was the first gospel and Matthew and Luke used him as a basis, and Gospel of John is not like Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And then right at the end, the theology came in, Word of God. Holy Spirit inspired. That's got nothing to do with the history of anything, mate. That's your theology. That's your bias trying to fit a narrative.
Could I follow up that question?
I accept my bias. I accept my bias, but you don't accept your bias, and my bias is better than your bias. But you're not willing to go into presuppositions.
What does that even mean, mate? So you mean you lean towards? So you're more biased. You think that's a good thing?
I accept my bias. I believe the Bible. You believe the Quran, but you don't accept your bias. I accept my bias.
This examination has got nothing to do with the
question. No, the point is, we can see, the audience can see, you're not willing to go and deal with this issue, that there's independent historical source material here. You asked the question, the doctor
there was
here
nothing
said
there.
about...
There was nothing in what you... Jason,
he asked the question
nonsense. Jason, there was nothing in what you read then that says that the author of John was the disciple of Jesus and it's historically reliable. Nothing you said then. You just preached. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Fee, I don't think he said anything controversial. In that we can agree there was like a feeding of 5,000. But if you compare the story from among the Gospels, you have in Mark's Gospel Jesus feeding 5,000, but in Matthew it's Jesus feeds 5,000 plus he also feeds now women and children. And then in John's Gospel you have Jesus declaring, "I am the bread of life." So there is like a progression over time. So there was some kind of historical event. But you have John having Jesus now say, "I am the bread of life,"
yeah, exactly.
which previously wasn't said.
Which takes us to Imran's question, which he asked Jason, which does in Gospel of Mark is Jesus referred to as a bread of life? And Jason just ignored the question.
And it's the most important thing that Jesus says in the narrative in John. In fact, Christians would say these are claims to divine origin, claims to being God. Now,
because the Jews were grumbling.
Every preacher, every gospel writer would have wanted to have said the same thing, because this is the most important claim.
They're all here. They're listening to the speech that's being made as 5,000 plus the women and children, etc., are being fed. And amongst that speech is a claim to divinity. So the question is, of all of the words that should match, these are the words that you should find, not fish, not bread, but actually, I am the bread of life, should be replicated, because it's the most significant statement amongst the statements. It should be replicated in the other recordings of the same speech. The problem that we have is it's not. So then the question comes is 3 out of the 4 gospels that we have, 75% of them don't record the most significant statement that's made. And why would we think that then therefore that's an evidence for reliability? This is the question that I would ask you.
It seems
that's a good point, Doctor. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So should we conclude?
Let's just read this.
Let's see if Jason can respond to that point.
Right, I'll just read this and it responds to Dr. Imran. Is it Dr. Imran? Yeah. It says, just a writer says this. It says, the moment a reader picks up John's gospel, he is aware that there is a difference from the other 3 gospels. There is no genealogy, no manger scene, no manger scene, no boyhood, or no baptism, no temptation. Others dealt with those details. John desires to solidify in the minds of all generations the identity of Jesus. So the purpose of the Gospel of John, in John chapter 1, verse 1, John began his gospel with a simple yet pronounced declaration, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So it's proclaiming Jesus as God, and so he wants to get his material and make it clear. So when he says, I'm the bread of life, in the Old Testament, God gave manna, he gave bread to the people in Israel, and now Jesus is giving bread, and he's fulfilling the Old Testament.
Do you believe Jesus said those words?
Listen. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. So his purpose of writing the gospel is different from the others.
Fair enough, Jason, but this is not a theology. Jason, did Jesus say those words? Do you believe Jesus said those words? I'm the bread of life.
Yeah, because I've proved to you it's an independent source. I've proved to you. So you
believe Jesus said those words? Right.
I've proved to you by statistical analysis.
Jason, you haven't proven anything.
Let me finish.
No.
Let me finish.
Jason, no. Jason, I'll say it again to you. Do you believe Jesus said those words? I'm the bread of life.
Let me finish. I'll answer the question.
No, I'm not going to let you finish. No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe Jesus said those words historically? I'm the bread of life.
Oh, you sound like an Hare Krishna. No. Let me finish, and then I'll answer you.
No, I'm not going to let you finish, Jason. I'm not going to let you finish, mate. I want you to answer a simple question. Do you believe Jesus said those words historically? If you don't answer the question,
Sir.
just say goodbye. Do you believe Jesus said those words historically?
Of course I do, bro.
Right. So the question then needs to be asked, why did the other 3 gospel writers not record this as a historical event?
Now, can I answer you then, sir? Can I answer you now, Hamza, please?
Please do.
Okay, let me answer you, sir. John also included a series of conversations of proof of Jesus' identity.
That's not asking my question. That's not answering my question, mate. I asked you. No, I asked you a simple question, mate. Why in the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke is this profound historical statement not made or found?
I'm answering your question if you let me answer.
But it's got nothing to do with the Gospel of John.
Miracle. I'm answering your question. What you're scared of, bro?
You're not answering my question, mate.
I am. You're not even letting me answer, bro.
Thank you for coming on. You can't answer a straight question. Have a good evening. Ben? Done.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
They can't take it. They can't take it.
Bye, Jason.
You can't take it.
Bye, Jason. So disappointing, mate. So disappointing. I thought the scholarship was coming, man. I wanted him to reel off the things we've been saying. We said this about Luke. We said this about Mark. We said the church fathers said this. We think the Gospel of John had 3 authors. This is not consistent with that. Look, simple question. If Jesus said, I'm the bread of life, as Dr. Imran pointed out beautifully, this was the most profound thing to be said. And if this was said historically, why did nobody else record this historic saying? It's only found in the Gospel of John. I don't get why you can't just admit, okay, I don't know why it's not there or whatever. But every time we tried to ask him a direct question that we knew the answer to be honest with, just wanted to hear him say it. He just went around the houses, man, asking me to quote. What did me quoting from the New Testament, Gospel of John, what did that demonstrate? How did that demonstrate the Gospel of John's historically reliable? And then all the percentages showing how different all the Gospels are. I was so disappointed. I thought he was going to really bring some sensibility. So I don't
believe he was on to address our points at all. No. He was on to play a narrative to his audience. That's why I was getting so frustrating.
Well, if I could summarize something, right? So I can summarize all of Jason's argument with these next 3 sentences. His first claim was that we all have presuppositions and his bias is better than our bias, which at this point, I still have no idea what that's meant to mean.
How that's a positive?
He screams at me, you know nothing about textual criticism. So I ask him about Westcott and Hort. The very thing that they are infamous for the people that believe in the Byzantine text, the one thing they attack Westcott and Hort for is that between 6 to 7 places in the New Testament, they made up variants of the text that they felt were better in the text. You will notice I let him examine me on where the Nile is, or what a scriptorium is, where Codex Sinaiticus is. From all of these things, I answered one after the other, 0 hesitation. And his only thing was, it's in the book. So we let him read from the book what the earliest manuscript is. And he still didn't get it in the first chapter. We didn't interrupt him when he read from it. No,
because he's not in. He didn't come on the stream to refute anything that you guys have said throughout all of this. All that he wanted to do was show a side point. Or your bias is wrong. Or what are you doing? What's the point, mate? It was so frustrating. And then it was, you guys are the bad guys. You keep interrupting me. It was just it was a play. It was a show to get the Christian audience that are watching this to go, look, see, these guys are bad, so don't trust them because we are destroying.
Did you understand why you asked me to read from John 6? Well, that demonstrated.
The whole point of that was so that he could quote statistics. So all he had to do was read those statistics and then make his point. But he went through the show of it, and let's be honest here, he knew he was wasting time. He knows that, listen, he came on to tell me I know nothing about textual criticism. And is there any question he asked me about textual criticism that I didn't answer? I let him question me and I answered it. And his questions were bad in the first place. But the one question I asked him, what is the earliest manuscript with that long ending of Mark? It's in 5,000 manuscripts. Okay, that's nice, but that's not what I asked you. What is the earliest one with it? Because it tells you when it entered the textual stream, when it first initially entered, and then how it spread throughout the stream and propagated. Simple questions, right? So let's wrap up the stream because I think at some point Nazem fell asleep. At some point, I'm not sure, Like I could be wrong, but I think I saw Dr. Imran like calling like the E999, like he's calling them, please pick me up, carry me to the loony bin, because there are going to be more sane people there than the guy on the stream right now.
You know what shocked me though, Ijaz, more than anything, right? You know, Jason, he's a speaker's corner speaker. He's into the brawl. He's into the rough and tumble. Yeah. So, but did I not make my question crystal clear, concise, that you just answer this manuscript from this year, from this date? Or no, he's not called bread of life in Mark, Matthew, and Luke. I'm not quite sure why not, or whatever it may be. Just such simple questions, and we waffle all around the house. And every time you ask him, what do you believe? Oh, this guy believes this. This guy believes that. This guy says this. And then even the one that Gordon Fee, he brings out his book. He says, this guy is the most top scholar on the New Testament. But I don't agree with him when it comes to the long end of the mark. Wait a minute, what's going on here, man? Either he's a top scholar in the New Testament or he's not. And the idea that you dismiss somebody because it doesn't suit your narrative, and that was Jason's problem. He's correct in one thing, yeah. He is more biased than we are. Much more biased. He'll throw his intellect under the bus because of his bias. It just has to be his narrative. So when a scholar suits his opinion, he'll use that bit, but reject it when it goes against his opinion somewhere else.
This is the theme of what the Christians that have come on, because they do that. They go put it on us, and they go, "Well, what about your?" And they go bring it to the Islamic faith.
Bart Ehrman, they always go Bart Ehrman. Well, if you believe Bart Ehrman, then you should believe Jesus was crucified because he believed. So they try to force that narrative on us because we accept Bart Ehrman on certain things that he says due to his investigation in the New Testament. We have to accept everything he says, which means Jesus was crucified because he says it. Yet when it comes to them, they can take their scholars and pick and choose what they like from theirs. This is a double standard, man. Forget our double standard. Yours, that's a double standard.
What did he spend 2 months preparing for? Because
I don't know what he prepared for, mate. I have no idea.
I want to point out something before we wrap up. I just want to point out something, right? He said you asked him the question about the manuscript, and I think I followed up and I asked the same question, right? He's like, I have this book and I've read it twice. I know everything in it. And then you asked him, well, what is the earliest manuscript? He's like, my wife will find it for me. So he had his wife helping him, right? And she couldn't find it. So who the hell read the book in the first place? I'm confused.
Funny, yeah? I Googled it, mate. I just Googled it in seconds.
It was just a show. It was a show.
Did you see his face? Did you see his face when I made you count out more than 2? Because his whole argument, you only have 2. Well, what about all these families in addition to those 2 and more than 2? He had no response to it. Listen, I love Jason. I'll tell you why. The comments are right. He is a living meme. And I will never understand. I am a scholar. I run a seminary in Africa. I read this book twice. I know everything in it, but I can't answer a simple question. Just get a refund for the seminary.
How many times did he turn around to reach for something but never came back with anything?
Start doing that now.
Like he was going to bring some profound answer.
He demanded that we give him the references to the feeding of the 5,000. Brother Nazim was nice enough to tell him it. None of you can give me it. Nazim literally 10 seconds earlier did it. He made
what he was doing is he was putting an illusion that he is learned and you guys aren't. So he was going, oh, this book I've learned this, I've learned that. What have you got? And that was the whole point. He was trying to show his posse, his audience, that you guys don't know what you're talking about, but I do. So trust me.
But he didn't when you ask say anything.
Exactly. So when you ask what is in that book, come on.
You need to read it. You need to read it for yourself. No, I don't need to read it for myself. Funny thing is, I've got a book this thick, right? All about the long end in the mark. Arguing for it. You know that. I was trying to find it, but it's behind my green screen. But I'm going to find that book, man. Honestly.
So I think...
And look, for example, I asked an innocent question. You know, when he asked me to read from the Bible, I think everybody's aware the KJV and NIV do differ. Yeah? Some have verses omitted, some have verses added. Is it not a fair question to ask which version he thinks is most reliable?
Well, the thing is, if you...
I wasn't being naughty or tricky. And what's he on about halves and wash? And
It's an equivocation. See, the point is, you asked him an intelligent question because there are a lot of verses in the KJV that cannot be found in other versions, right? So you asking him which one he prefers, he got upset at. So we were trying to be Robert is killing me. Ben, I've never seen you that frustrated before
Yeah,
with
that was
someone's
really hard
ignorance.
on me.
Like
'Cause
Dr.
it is-
Imran was looking like, where's my tranquilizer gun? I know I have it somewhere here. That was the expression. Listen, everyone says that Brother Nazem is one of the nicest people. Brother Nazem fell asleep at some point.
And it was getting quite technical, so it went over my head, to be honest,
was
and
why-
I was lost.
This was why I was trying to bring it back to the layman, to simple terms. Is it there? Is it not? What's the earliest manuscript? Whatever. No need to go technical and quoting this scholar as if like, oh, because he said it, it must be true.
I would have liked Jason to have addressed the points that we made in the last stream and today. But
And he's
yeah,
had all that
it
time
was
to prepare.
unfortunate. But yeah,
And he's even made videos about our stream and everything. So it's like, what? Just one point that we made in how many? 10. This is number 10. 10 whole episodes.
Do you know the one word I would use to sum up my experience of Jason Burns today? Disappointed.
Yeah.
So disappointed. I expected so much more.
We gave him priority because he is learned. He has looked.
I was waiting for the scholarship, man. I was waiting for those mountains of paperwork to give some fruits.
But never mind.
And I'll say it again.
Our discussion with First Colossians was good, and also Frank as well was good as well.
First Colossians, I'm not quite so sure it was good. It wasn't fruitful.
The point is, we put out a challenge, right? So I hope the Christians understand now. A man with all those books but can't remember a single detail from them. We allowed him uninterrupted to read from the first chapter, and he still couldn't find it. He's like 2nd century because of the style of the words. Okay, can you qualify that with some evidence? Don't interrupt me. Let me finish reading. Finishes reading. We go to repeat the question. What is the earliest? I'm not finished. But that was the point of you reading it in the first place.
Well, the thing is this, you would ask him a question and he'd go, let me finish. Wait a minute, we're asking you the question.
Or we would say, let me finish when Ijaz just went like that. Or he would start the sentence with, let me finish.
That's what I'm thinking. We ask him a question. What's the earliest manuscript that contains a long end and a mark?
All right,
let me finish. What do you mean let you finish? Just answer the bloody question.
All right, guys. I think that's it then, isn't it? Should we tell him about the future streams, what's going on and stuff like that?
I think we'll continue with this particular one next Sunday.
Yeah, John chapter 3. And here's the requirement.
Awesome.
Make sure you read the books before you quote them to us. Goodness sake.
Well, just do a point that we said. Like, I'm not any of them.
Do a Mary. Not quite like a Mary. Because she watches the streams and she'll watch one little word you said wrong and she'll bring paperwork on that little word. We don't quite want that. We've made quite a few claims, quite a few questions. We've raised quite a few questions and pointers. And all we want you to do, Christians, this is all we want you to do, is say, look, at such and such a minute, Hamza said this about the Gospel of John and his reasons why he doesn't think it's historically reliable. Well, I think he was wrong. And here's why, Then start quoting whatever you want to quote. Don't come on and start saying, book about the Jewish history. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? You've got to come and either challenge what we've said or bring new evidence to the table. So what we've done right now, we're countering what Christians generally say. When we go Speaker's Corner, when I meet them in the Dawah tables, when I see them online, Facebook, and all this kind of stuff. This is what they're saying. This is their claims. And all we're doing is, why do you believe that? That's all we're doing. And all we've done so far is counter their claims. And then we've looked ourselves for inconsistency and such, which is fine. But you might have something that we've missed or that we've not heard before. And you come forward and say, look, the Gospel of John is reliable and here's why. Or the Gospel of Mark is historically reliable and here's why. Now, Christians are all over the place. Some say it's historical, some say it's not, some say it's the word of God, some say it's not. So we're all over the way there. But what we want you to do, Christians, please, come on, make your point. And then if we challenge your point, you can demonstrate your point. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's to you, Rafa. First Colossians. Who else is there? Mary, all of you. That is the format. If you don't follow that format, unfortunately, you won't get on the stream. Yeah, because we gotta cut the waffle.
Yeah, the waffle's ridiculous now, and it's like
it's nonsense, man,
and all that sort of stuff. If
if I may summarize this discussion with one quote, I just want to point out that how do we expect the Christians to prove the historicity of the gospel when they think that Hamza and I look alike, that Ben is Robert who doesn't even exist, that we had a stream yesterday where we discussed this topic apparently, and that, what was it, that one of you is Mansoor. They can't get basic details right, but they want to argue. You know what, Dr. Imran, you impressed me today, because when you mentioned pigeon chess, forever I will remember Jason Birds.
Okay, guys, call it a day.
Just before you call it a day, I know Hamza will be a bit annoyed at this. I've just posted my link in the chat for my ration challenge, because you don't want to support Hamza, you want to support me in the ration challenge. We're raising money for Syria by doing a ration challenge, eating the contents of a Syrian refugees ration pack for 1 week. Visit the link. That's my one, but you can explore on the efdawah one, and if you like Hamza more, inshallah, go for
Don't worry,
Hamza.
I'll leave my link in the comments on the video. Don't worry.
Yeah, all right.
Can I just say Eid Mubarak to everyone who celebrated Eid?
Yeah.
Eid Mubarak. We forgot.